welcome to Catacris TV. My name is Jason J. Rock Houston. Our special guest today is Mickey Finn, the lead singer from Jetboy. How you doing today, Mickey?
Doing good.
Now,
Doing
I
very
know when
good.
the band started out, which was around 1983, you guys came out of the San Francisco scene, which is an interesting place because, as you know, San Francisco's brought us a lot of great music over the years. I mean, everything from the Grateful Dead to Creedence Clearwater Revival, Montrose, even the big 80s thrash scene. So, what was it like being part of that growing musical scene at the time?
Yeah, so and I'll elaborate even more because a very, very artistic and amazing city, drenched in all types of music. So, great blues festivals, jazz festivals, a great art scene, and also a great punk rock scene, right? The Bay Area in general, but San Francisco was a gravitating point for tons of amazing punk rock bands and alternative bands. So, I think for me, kind of growing up in the South Bay, San Jose, Santa Clara area, and going to San Francisco for events and even Oakland as well. I saw a lot of my early concerts at the Cow Palace, an amazing venue, Oakland Stadium, Oakland Arena, and then kind of exploding out of that for me and exploring alternative music. So I kind of went from being say 15 to 18 years old or so, and just going to concerts and classic rock stuff. Day on the Green, obviously Bill Graham Productions, and Day on the Green concerts was a huge thing for me to see, all the great bands like Dio and UFO and Kiss and all of that. But then also kind of having that awakening to alternative music and punk rock happened for me right around 19, 20 years old. At the same time I had started my music career and singing in some early bands. I think actually the first bands I really started working with, there was Sweet Evil, of course, which was kind of like a Motley Crue, early Motley Crue, the beginning Motley Crue meets Black Sabbath. And then I evolved immediately into the punk rock scene and played in some bands there where I was drumming and then singing. And that's really where I started hanging out immersing myself in the music scene in San Francisco, which was primarily around the North Beach area,
Oh, wow.
the Broadway Strip, right, where you had the on Broadway, you had Mabuhay Gardens, and the Stone right across the street, and any Friday or Saturday night during those early 80s, around 83, you would find Exodus or Metallica or Megadeth,
Yeah, yeah.
and across the street you would find alternative bands, playing, punk rock bands playing, and it was just a big melting pot of all styles of music. And it wasn't really very segregated. I mean, you had all different styles of people hanging out together,
Yeah, yeah.
going to the same shows. And you might be at a glam rock show one weekend and a punk rock show the next weekend and a metal show the next weekend, and it all meshed together really nicely. So I think that's what was so inspiring for my early days with Jetboy was kind of having that.
It's interesting. So, I was looking on some of the photos on your Facebook page, and no doubt you can tell you're obviously a punk fan, as you mentioned. What was it
Wow.
about the punk music that, like, you were really, was it the attitude, the music, a little bit of both, the anarchy of it?
Yeah, I think initially it was the kind of misfit thing, right? Because I grew up, I grew up in New Jersey, and I was kind of a small kid. I grew up kind of getting bullied and picked on a lot.
Makes sense.
And
Yeah.
I for some reason I gravitated towards, the tough guys and the cool kids, the kids, who were, smoking pot in the parking lot, and they were usually like big, macho tough guys, but they never really accepted me. I didn't fit in with the jocks. I didn't fit in with the smart kids because I was a horrible student through school because I was very ADHD, right? And that kind of stays with you through life, right?
Kind of makes sense then that you might gravitate towards music because if you can be successful doing music, there is that opportunity to bond with other people that you
Yeah,
obviously so long for.
right. But unfortunately, I never had the patience to learn any instruments, which is kind of common with an ADHD person, just too hyper to sit down and learn guitar. I did. My parents made me take drum lessons. I wanted to get a drum set, and my parents said, "Well, look, we're not going to buy you a drum set unless we see that you're committed to this." So they made me take drum lessons for a year.
Wow.
And that was like at a local music store in New Jersey where I sat down with a practice pad and sheet music, and it was rudiments, and it was horrible. It bored me, but I got through it because I wanted to have a drum set.
Yeah.
And I got through it, and they got me the drum set, and it came pretty naturally to me. I'm a natural rhythm person, and so that was kind of my entrance into the music world, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But beyond that, I wasn't really a musician, but I've always been a ham. I've always had a personality that's been
But
outgoing, and I've
even hearing that, it kind of makes more sense that you would gravitate maybe towards punk music because in punk music you don't necessarily have to be the best singer. It's more about the attitude, and people get
yeah,
off
for
on that.
sure. And when I remember my friend John Norman, who's kind of a legendary guy from the San Jose punk scene, rest in peace. And he brought me to my first punk show, and I met him at continuation school. So this was the school where I dropped out of high school when I was 16, went back a year later, but didn't have enough credits to graduate. So I went to a continuation school or an adult education program, and I met him there, and he started turning me on to all these punk bands, and he brought me to my first punk show. And I
Wow.
remember it was like a light went off because it was that feeling of acceptance where um you know uh everybody was just doing their own thing.
Sure,
People were
sure.
super cool. People just were so friendly, and everybody, it was just such a friendly,
Acceptance. Yeah,
non-intimidating
accepting.
vibe, right? And it gelled with me because I just felt like, oh man, I feel home here. Like I don't have to, it wasn't like, going to a metal show where like I remember uh probably a year before that, I went to a Dio concert, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And I was super into metal and Dio, and I took some mushrooms with a friend of mine, and that was kind of like I was kind of like getting into Motley Crue, and I was kind of a little bit glammed out. And I remember like walking around, and some like Hesher guy or whatever, just like I was walking by, and he was just like, "What the fuck?" And he just punched me in the face, like just cold cocked me.
Wow. What a jerk. Yeah.
Right. But that was kind of like, like part of like it was like I'm like, yeah, you know what? Like I'm not this macho guy. Like, like I love metal. I still do, but there was at that time, I mean, um there was just a vibe with heavy metal and like
Yeah.
testosterone and whatever. And so when I started going to punk rock shows, it wasn't that. It was the opposite. Not that there weren't those kind of guys in that scene too, but there was just an appeal there for me with art and style and fashion, and it was just new and exciting.
For whatever reason, it sounds like you finally found that place where you belonged.
Exactly. But at the same time, I retained my roots of where I came from because I
Yeah.
grew up a kid that was into, Led Zeppelin and Aerosmith and, Meatloaf and, classic rock stuff has always stayed with me. So, but I think getting into the punk rock scene expanded my horizons,
Yeah.
and I learned about ska music and oi music and goth music and,
Wow.
all these different, that's really what got me into music from the UK, and I started listening to bands like Motorhead and Tank and Ribsy and stuff that also was an influence. and that led to that Broadway scene is what led me to hook up with Billy and Fern, who had already kind of got Jetboy off the ground, and needed a singer. And you know, those guys exposed me to like Hanoi Rocks and New York Dolls, and again, that still stuff that is on the
Sure,
cusp, right?
sure. Let's talk about that transition. You go from being a drummer. What's the point where they, hey, can you sing or want to?
Yeah, so I was kind of playing drums in my garage with my friend Jeff Pareda and a high school buddy, and we were playing cover songs. I remember I loved to do there was a Babies song called Too Far Gone,
Okay,
right?
okay,
And I would
yeah,
play that, and I didn't even have a boom stand. I had like a mic between my legs, you know, and I was playing and singing, and you know, we started having friends come and check us out, and people started, you know, complimenting me on my voice. And I was like, well, yeah, what about my drumming? You know what I mean? And I had like the drum set with the roto toms. I wanted to be Neil Peart and whatever, but clearly wasn't. And I, you know, I just it started to resonate with me that, you know, people
I
were
love
saying,
hearing stories like this because you know you start out thinking you're going to be a drummer and probably
right,
had no idea that you could even sing, and then once you hear other people saying, "Hey,
yeah,
man, you got a pretty
well,
good
right.
voice,"
And then it dawned on me that, like, you know what, I have always been a singer. I was the kid that sang everything. I was like running around singing all the time. I would sing instead of talk, you know, like in the
yeah,
middle of
yeah,
the night. I would be like, you know, Mom, I want to drink a water. I want to drink a water, right? Like it was like annoying how I would sing
yeah.
TV commercials. I was always singing. I sang in church choir. I went to Catholic school for the first 3 years, and I was always singing, but it didn't. It was just like something I did. It didn't dawn on me until that point, and then it also, you know, it also came to my attention through friends that were like, well, you know, dude, like good singers, you know, kind of have a way higher value than drummers. Like it's for bands out there, like, you know, there's tons of guitar players and drummers, but like, you know, to be a frontman and a singer, like that's like something really hard to find. So I think that started to resonate with me, and yeah, that I
You know
started to
what
pursue.
a lot of people didn't know back then was, I mean, you look at a lot of the great singers that we know and love today. I mean, everybody from Steven Tyler, you know, Don Henley, Janie Lane, all started out as drummers and then became lead singers. Yeah,
Yep. And I mean, you can see I have a drum set in my office right now
yeah,
that I got for my kid. My boy is 7, and I'm starting him there too because he's like me. He's super hyper and crazy, and
wow.
I just know that like he can sit down at the piano and like just be musical. You know what I mean? You just let him go, but I know for a fact he would not take to piano lessons
Yeah.
because he's too hyper and fidgety. But like I could see that he has, you know, musical ability. So I'm like, all right, well, let me start him here. He can already play beats, you know what I mean? I don't want to push it because he's super into his video games and and all that. You know, I want to let him develop on his own if he does go that way. But I think you know, for that, you know, to me, to be a lead singer is more than just being a good singer. You
Oh,
you have to be
sure.
you got to be able to put on the show. You got to be a ham.
You got
You
to
got
communicate
to,
with the audience, you have a
yeah,
command of the stage. Yeah.
exactly. And you got to enjoy, you know, showing off,
Yeah.
right? You got to have that peacock gene in you. You know what I mean?
I mean, you've
Uh,
come full circle from just a little bit you told me so far from being kind of picked on to not really sure about yourself. Doing it all these years, you got to be at the point in life where you got that confidence that you need to be up there on the stage, and you know at this point in your career that the fans accept you, you know, so that's got to be a great feeling.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you know, at this point, I'm just happy. I'm turning 60 this year, right? So
Wow, man, see, you look young. You never, yes,
yeah, right. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So I'm just happy to be able to keep doing it and have people like you contact me and say, hey man, would you come on my podcast? It's like, yeah, of course, man.
you know,
Uh,
Jetboy is one of those bands that I mean, you know, even back in early 1988 when you guys were really kind of breaking. I mean, didn't have a huge splash, but I mean, even all these years later, what I'm getting ready to ask you about obviously is about the song "Feel the Shake." I mean, you couldn't possibly know that was going to be the song when you wrote it, or did you? Did you have a feeling?
Well, it's the title track of the record.
Yeah.
So, but obviously the record labels and the management and all, there's, too many cooks in the kitchen kind of thing, right? A lot of our fans that followed our progression from when we started to our first record coming out were a little bit disappointed because it was polished and whitewashed a bit. That's another thing people don't understand, right? Is you attract record company attention, and but then they get in there and there's like all these opinions, right? And they're like, okay, like, this is good, but let's get you in the, record some demos, write another 30 or 40 songs.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and you're just like, a lot of great stuff got lost in the shuffle. I mean, I'm proud of Feel the Shake. You only get one first.
As you should be. I mean, it's the song. It's your song.
Yeah,
It's that signature song that everybody. And
yeah,
I would much rather have that one signature song that everybody's always asking about than not
yeah,
having any at all. And
yeah, for
the
sure.
funny thing is, like I was prepping for an interview today, went on YouTube, I was checking out the video for it. All these years later, it fit that time. And Feel the Shake. What I love about it is, I mean, it's one of those songs I could just picture going to a concert, and it's that vibe. It's Feel the Shake, like the vibes of the music, the good vibes, a good time.
Yeah.
That's what every rock fan wants to experience when they go to a concert.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good anthem. I don't think we set out to write an anthem, but
You
but
know,
but clearly we were all very influenced by AC/DC,
yeah,
and a lot of our earlier stuff was way more New York Dolls, Hanoi Rock style. But I think with a lot of our writing, and as it progressed from there with our second album, Damnation, we kind of got more into that crunchy rock AC/DC style. But I just think yeah, we're lucky to have an anthem that people can remember. Unfortunately, I think at that time the record industry was just trying to package everything in a mold,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
look at a lot of the bands that were successful from then. We didn't fit into that mold, right? Like
Yeah.
they never liked the fact that I had a mohawk. They never liked that kind of punk
Fine. Yeah.
alternative influence in our music. And to me that was a mistake, because it's like, I think we did fit in with the other bands, but we were a little different. I feel like we had a little more to offer,
Sure.
and that kind of cookie cutter mold that so many of the bands fit into. And the songs were there, like
Yeah.
the songs were catchy and poppy and melodic, and I feel like we could have been and should have been bigger.
I mean, you were right on the cusp there. And the thing about having a song like that though is you guys you guys took a break for a while. You ended it in '93 because of all the grunge stuff and that. But when you came back in 2006, how surprised were you that the fans were as welcoming? And part because I feel the shake. People, that's the song everybody remembers. So in a way, it helped you with that comeback.
Yeah, for sure. That the comeback in 2006 was really instigated by Brian Pereira, who is the president of Cleopatra Records, who we are working with currently, and we have done a lot of stuff with him. But he was the one that kind of instigated, and that was really the first revolution of like, hey, this 80s hair metal, although I kind of hate the
Yeah.
term, is
Yeah.
coming back, and you guys could do stuff again. I had been off on a 10-year journey of being a DJ and
Wow.
electronic music, and Billy, Billy and I always stayed in touch, and he started saying, hey man, we got this and that, you should come back, we'll do this. And it did feel really good,
I'm kind of
because
the
I
same.
had
I'm
spent
kind of
about 10 years kind of like I didn't talk about it, right? Like I had gotten married, I was in a new scene, I had tons of friends. Most people who knew me knew nothing about the fact that I was Mickey Finn from Jetboy.
Wow.
And so it did feel really good to come back and realize that there are people who remembered us and were hungry for it. And it felt good to start
Yeah,
getting.
that's what I was gonna say. That'd be ultimate feeling, satisfaction that wow, I didn't realize there'd even be people still wanting to see us,
Yeah,
And
exactly.
before we wrap up today's interview, I got to ask, bringing up to kind of modern day. I know you guys are working on a covers CD. Is it all recorded, or do you have a targeted release date for that?
Yeah, so it's all done. It's 12 songs or 12 or 13 songs. We're just kind of like working on the last couple of mixes to submit it all, but we did release the two singles. The first one is Since You've Been Gone.
Just love that, man. What you guys did to that.
Yeah, and Graham Bonnet for me like was a big influence. I didn't realize it because I'm pretty sure when I was into Graham Bonnet with Rainbow and then also Alcatraz, I was probably maybe just starting to explore singing and getting in bands,
Yeah.
but his vocal style is always
Yeah,
resonating.
you really can't go wrong with that song, Mickey. And I tell you, I can hear the influence in it because I mean, you got Graham Bonnet down.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
felt comfortable. The highs were a little challenging, especially at my age, but the overall feel and the verses just it resonates with how my voice has developed over the
It's
years.
funny that you guys are putting that out now because I just saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and it's
I
featured.
know that was crazy. Like literally, we had submitted. We already picked like the first three singles.
Yeah.
And Since You've Been Gone was one of them. And then I see this trailer and I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Like people will think like,
That's
oh,
good.
they recorded this because of the movie. We had no idea.
Yeah.
And I see the trailer and I literally call Brian and I'm like, dude, we gotta put this out now because it was literally like the last week of April and I'm like, the movie comes out May 5th. And so we put it out right away. And I'm just like,
I can
that
only
is
think of one other time that happened. I remember a couple years back, both Ace Frehley and the Dead Daisies covered Humble Pie's 30 Day in the Hole.
Yeah, right. Oh, God, another great song, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the cover record is done. It's gonna really kind of blow people's minds because when he approached us about doing a covers record, I was like, okay, great. We've never done one.
Yeah.
And of course you're thinking like, oh, we got to do an AC/DC and a Kiss and a Hanoi Rocks, and you're thinking of all this stuff. But he was like, no, I don't want the typical stuff. I want to, and he
I was just
proposed
getting ready to
this idea.
say, I love your version of Rich Girl, which of course is a Hall & Oates. That's totally unexpected, but you rock it, man.
Yeah, and we've got other stuff coming up. Like we did Dreamweaver.
Oh
Okay.
wow.
We did Bloody Well Right by Supertramp. And then we've got some off the wall ones. Like most people are stumped by this one, but there's a song called Thunder Island by Jay Ferguson.
Okay.
Some of them are a little yacht rocky, but we do a real heavy version of them. But I for me, it's like it's a lot of stuff that we listened to when we were kids before we got hip and cool, like stuff that was on the radio, pop music.
But then again, it's cool for your fans because it's not something that's been covered a half a dozen times.
Exactly. We're doing Cover of a Rolling Stone by Dr. Hook.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah, we're doing Thin Lizzy
Ever
Dancing.
hear Poison's version of that? Man, they album they did with Blue Sarcino, and they rocked that.
Yeah. So cool stuff. We did one new song, which was a song that I brought to the table, which is near and dear to my heart because it's an artist who my son actually discovered when he was about 5.
Wow.
Like on his iPad. And my wife and I were like, oh, who is this guy? And the guy's name is Lewis Capaldi. He's a UK artist. And there's actually a new documentary about him and his career, how he blew up in Europe, and the fact that he has recently been diagnosed with Tourette's syndrome.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and through the course of him blowing up and developing all these tics and whatnot, the documentary is amazing if you watch it. But his songs, they're all ballads, they're all emotional, they tug the heartstrings, but he was a big hit with me and my wife and my family, and also internationally. He's an amazing songwriter, and so I wanted to do one of his songs. The one we picked was Before You Go, and so that's the only kind of new song
I was gonna
that
say,
we did.
Mickey, the cool thing about that is, I mean, it's still you covering somebody else's music, but I love the fact that, this guy's got this unique story and you guys are kind of shining a light on it. And how cool is
Absolutely.
that? And can you imagine him?
And again, right? Like we didn't when we picked the song to do, I had no idea. I think he announced or it came to light. I think he even did like an interview on the Howard Stern show or something. But we didn't know about the documentary that recently came out. And this was me kind of pushing like the guys like Billy, like none of them, they're like, who is this guy? Whatever, and they were kind of like, I don't know. Then they started checking him out and looking into it. And they were just like, wow, yeah,
Can you
this
imagine
guy
this
really
guy's
is it.
excitement? Jetboy's covering his song. I mean,
Yeah,
again, it's not like Molly Crew, but you know what I mean? It's still, you guys got enough of a fan base that people are gonna now want to know, who is this guy?
yeah. Another favorite we did was we did James Taylor, Fire and Rain.
Oh, wow, wow.
And that for me, like, and I'm speaking from like my favorite ones to sing, and the emotion that comes out of it. And then the other one is Can't You See by
Molly Hatchet.
no, it's Blue was it Blue Oak, Arkansas? What is gosh.
Oh, okay. I think I've heard this song. Yeah, okay.
Can't you see? Oh, can't you see
Yeah, yeah,
what
yeah, yeah.
that woman been doing to me? Yeah, that's another one. I loved singing it.
That's another one. I got to tell you, that's another song Poison covered on their covers record.
They did?
Yeah, you got to check it out. It's pretty. Brett kills it.
Yeah, check it out. Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be fun stuff. It hopefully will be out by the end of the year, but we've been dragging a little bit with scheduling and everything. It's difficult right now because Billy and I are like the last two original members in
Yeah, the
Jetboy.
Cherry, right? Yeah.
Bernie retired. Billy's in Buck Cherry now, and so it's just we're keeping it alive for the love, and we're still trying to do it, but it's gotten challenging. But we've kind of always done that over the years. We've come and gone and taken hiatuses. I feel like after this year, we're probably going to just do these 3 more shows this year. But hopefully next year, I've got a busy work schedule. I've got 2 young kids. Hopefully next year we'll start to get busy again and jump on more festivals. And I love to do the stuff like the festivals and
Yeah.
cruises and stuff like that. But
I mean, at this time in your career, it makes the most sense to do those type of gigs because
yeah,
bands are not
exactly.
touring like every night of the
Right.
week like they used
Yeah, I'm
to.
not interested in doing a club tour, and you know what I mean. Like, I got,
Kind of makes sense. I understand. Before I let you go, I got to ask you. I love to hear ask people like, do you know the story how the band came to be named Jetboy?
So, you know, ultimately it was from the New York Dolls song Jet Boy.
Okay.
But also at that time, Fernie, the lead guitar player, worked at the airport.
Okay.
And so I think somehow he kind of came up with that idea because someone had, called him that at some point, like, hey, Jet Boy, or whatever. But yeah, ultimately it was from the New York Doll song Jet
Yeah.
Boy.
And so, how do you feel about Jetboy being lumped in with all those so-called hair metal bands? Because I think you guys were kind of right for that time, and that what I loved about music from that time is like many of the bands you mentioned, Hanoi Rocks, Kiss. I love bands that have kind of Alice Cooper have a look and a sound, if you know what I mean, and it all comes together.
I've always been a fan of the showmanship,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And so like I think um I think there was a bunch of horrible style stuff
like
that's
anything.
lumped in
Yeah,
with right. So I definitely think there's hair metal stuff that I hated or that I still am I cringe when I see.
yeah,
But it's like, look, we set out to do it. It wasn't like, you know, people wanted to hate and say like, oh, these bands, they care more about their hair and their makeup than they do about their musicianship. Well, I don't really think that's the case for any bands in
Yeah,
that genre. We were all serious musicians.
sure,
I think some of us had better style than
sure.
others,
Yeah,
right? Because you know, yeah, and I'll leave it at that. You know, we were
yeah, yeah,
really into making our own clothes and kind of like I mean, look, we were the first ones to bring that style to LA
yeah.
when the LA bands were still wearing spandex, you know, tiger spandex with Capizio dance shoes and whatever. And we showed up with you know, we would peg our own jeans, right? There was no skinny jeans back then.
Yeah,
You had
yeah.
to buy jeans and you had to sew them tight, and we would sew fringe down the side, and we had creepers, and we had this style that really wasn't happening in LA in that glam scene,
Yeah.
but all the bands absorbed it. LA Guns, Poison, Guns N' Roses, they all got on board with that. But yeah, I mean, look, it was a great era, you know.
For
I mean,
sure.
look,
I mean,
a lot
I
of
would
people,
I would
a
much
lot,
rather go see a band like dressed up and it's going to entertain me than just five guys in jeans and t-shirts, you know?
exactly. And if you don't dig the style, I mean, a lot of people still slag on the
Yeah.
disco era. But the fact of the matter is, there was a ton of great music that came out of the disco era.
You know what though? I mean, I'll just point to two bands, you know, ABBA and the Bee Gees. I mean, they're,
But yeah, right.
can
The
you
Beach,
imagine how much money those guys are still making off staying alive?
exactly. And it was great musicianship.
Yeah,
And Casey and the Sunshine Band.
for
And there
sure.
was a ton of great funk and just great music, great musicianship. It was a short-lived scene. And a lot of the reason why it fizzled out was due to, you know,
Overexposure.
yeah,
Yeah,
the drugs and the exposure and the, you know, oh, disco, oh, it was cliche after a while, and the hair metal scene kind of became a cliche too fast as well. But I guarantee it will never be forgotten. It will
for sure.
always be based, and there's new kids getting into it every year. But for
Yeah,
those of us who lived it, there will never be an era
yeah.
like that era
I
again.
totally agree.
Never
I
happened.
mean, fact that you guys can still go out and do shows, there's something to be said for what you just said. I mean, even same thing happened with grunge, where you had the Nirvanas and the Soundgardens, and then all they wanted to sign was nothing but grunge bands. But like anything, the cream rises to the top.
Right. Look, the record industry is what it is. It's the record industry. It's
Yeah,
a business. It's run by mostly non-musicians, business people, businessmen. It's all about the almighty dollar.
of course.
And, you know, it is what it is. But music has its own life, and you know, it's art.
Yeah,
It's art, and it's I'm proud to have been part of an era that will be remembered forever.
as you should be. And you know, back then, you know, there's no doubt that you were in a rock band the way you look, but somebody might look at you today and think, oh, he must be an accountant or something. But do you miss the mohawk?
Well, I still have a mohawk.
Okay, well, okay, yeah, you're hiding it.
And I
Okay.
have a tattooed neck and head and hands, so I don't think I would be
You
an
know, that's cool
accountant.
that you can hide that, like, you know, when you kind of need to with a hat, and you take
Yeah,
the hat off and your rock star look comes out, you know.
yeah, I've made a life for myself due to my personality. I've had a strong resume in sales, and I've made a life for myself. And I for the last 12 years I work in men's hair products and grooming products, which kind of makes sense for a guy who wrote a song called "Don't Mess with My
We come
Hair."
full circle. I mean, to hear from the days of being the kid that everybody picked on to having this story, it's really great to hear that.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed getting to talk to you today, Mickey, and getting to know you. Let's keep in touch. I definitely love to do this again, maybe once the CD comes out.
Yeah, right on. Sounds great. Thanks for
It's
inviting me, man. It's a pleasure.
anytime,
And
man. You're welcome back. And this interview will be going up probably in the next week. I'll let you know so you can feel
yeah,
free to
send me a
share.
link. I'll post it up.
Take care, buddy. Bye bye.
Okay, you too.